Welcome to this explainer. You know, when most of us picture Southwest Asia, we probably just imagine endless, sun-scorched stretches of sand, right? But the true story of this region's immense global power, it actually isn't written in the sand at all. It's written in water. We're talking about 8 critical waterways that literally act as the ultimate chess pieces in geopolitics and global trade. They dictate everything from basic local survival to the health of the entire global economy. So today we're going to trace the profound impact of the Tigris, Euphrates, and Jordan rivers, along with the massive saltwater arteries, the Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, Arabian Sea, Red Sea, and the Suez Canal.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're looking at 1. The desert's liquid lifelines. 2. Rivers of life and conflict. 3. The global oil arteries. 4. The great global shortcut. And finally, 5. The future of water. All right, let's jump right in.
Part 1. The desert's liquid lifelines, navigating scarcity and power. So the climate out here is brutally hot. It's dominated by massive, vast deserts like the Rub al Khali. For thousands of years, nomadic groups like the Bedouins survived by moving super carefully from oasis to oasis. But today, with rapid urban and industrial growth, finding and controlling fresh water is, well, it's quite literally a matter of life and death. Which brings up a fascinating question. How does an area defined by such extreme, life-threatening water scarcity manage to hold the world's most powerful nations in its grip? How does a region filled with these vast, seemingly empty spaces end up being the absolute focal point of global trade?
Well, the answer lies buried right under all that sand. Over 50% of the world's entire oil reserves are located right here in Southwest Asia. And think about it. Petroleum is woven into almost every single aspect of our modern lives, from the gas in our cars to the literal plastics inside our smartphones. Because this region sits on such a massive reserve, it holds extraordinary wealth and serious geopolitical leverage. But here's the catch. All that oil is practically useless if you can't get it out of the desert and onto the global market. And that is exactly why the region's saltwater arteries are just as absolutely critical as the oil itself.
Part 2. Rivers of Life and Conflict, the Tigris, Euphrates, and Jordan.
Okay, before we trace those massive saltwater shipping lanes, we really need to understand the freshwater rivers that allow human beings to, actually live and farm in this region. The Tigris and the Euphrates are these massive river systems born way up in the mountains of Turkey. But geography naturally creates this powerful ripple effect. Every single gallon captured upstream by Turkish hydroelectric dams means less water for agriculture down in Syria and Iraq. As you can imagine, that sparks some pretty intense and ongoing geopolitical friction. Eventually, these two giant rivers actually join together in southern Iraq to form the Shatt al-Arab. That's a 125-mile waterway that empties right into the Persian Gulf, and historically it's served as a heavily contested border between Iraq and Iran.
Now compare those massive multi-country systems to the Jordan River. Physically, it is much smaller. It flows south straight into the Dead Sea. But its strategic importance? Absolutely off the charts. It's the primary freshwater source for Israel, Jordan, the West Bank, and Syria. So sharing it requires this constant, high-stakes diplomatic balancing act. A drought, or, say, a new diversion project over here, isn't just a tough year for farming. It's an immediate international crisis.
Moving to Part 3, the global oil arteries, the Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, and Arabian Sea.
This is where we shift scales from regional survival to pure global economic dominance. We're moving from the freshwater that grows the crops to the saltwater that literally fuels the world. Just imagine the journey of a modern supertanker. These vessels are absolute behemoths, carrying millions of barrels of oil at a time. First, they load up in the Persian Gulf, which is the undeniable epicenter of oil production for countries like Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. From there, they have to squeeze through this vital, tiny choke point called the Strait of Hormuz, before finally hitting the vast Arabian Sea to supply the rest of the planet, either heading west toward Africa or east toward India.
And that middle step, it is a terrifying bottleneck. If the Strait of Hormuz is blocked for any reason, the global economy essentially suffers a massive heart attack. Every single drop of oil shipped by sea out of the Gulf must pass through this tiny geographic gap to reach the open ocean. If it closes, we are talking skyrocketing prices at your local gas pump and total global supply chain paralysis overnight. Because of this, control of the strait gives incredible leverage, making it one of the most heavily monitored, militarized, and strategically vital stretches of water on planet Earth.
Part 4. The Great Global Shortcut, the Red Sea and the Suez Canal.
Let's continue that maritime journey westward across the Arabian Sea, leading us straight into the Red Sea. Now get this, before 1869, if you wanted to move goods from a port like London all the way to India, you were looking at a grueling, months-long, 12,400-mile voyage all the way around the entire continent of Africa. Then came an absolute engineering marvel. The Suez Canal was built, slicing right through the Egyptian desert and creating a direct maritime link between the Red Sea and the Mediterranean. It slashed that journey down to just 7,300 miles. That's a savings of over 5,000 miles of transit, and it completely rewrote the rules of global trade. Today, it remains a totally critical global artery, and it really proves that while geography sets the initial rules, human engineering can occasionally rewrite them.
Finally, Part 5, the future of water, technology versus scarcity.
With booming populations and increasing agricultural demands across the region, those natural rivers we talked about, they just aren't enough anymore. So countries are pioneering these incredibly smart solutions. Take drip irrigation, for example. They use computers to measure and deliver the exact amount of water a plant needs directly to its roots. It massively minimizes evaporation under that brutal desert sun. Meanwhile, some nations are actually digging deep into ancient underground rock layers to pump out what's known as fossil water. But here is a wild fact for you. Much of this fossil water has literally been trapped underground since the last ice age. It's a ticking clock. Once they pump out this ancient prehistoric water, it will not be replenished in our lifetimes. It's just gone.
And that brings us to desalination, the process of basically turning the region's saltwater arteries into fresh drinking water. Sounds like magic, right? Well, it comes with a super heavy cost. It requires massive amounts of energy and highly complex tech, which really means only the wealthier nations can truly rely on it. On top of that, it creates a pretty serious environmental dilemma. The process dumps this super salty, chemical-laced brine right back into the sea, which actually threatens the very marine ecosystems the region relies on in the first place.
So, we've traced the 8 absolutely vital arteries of Southwest Asia today. And as populations continue to boom and the global climate warms, it leaves us with the ultimate question. Will modern engineering be enough to quench this region's thirst? Or will the next great global conflict be fought not over oil, but over water? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning how the world around you really works.